Hello and welcome all to another wonderful Twitch broadcast session covering Game Guru. I'm your host Lee Bamba, and this is the time in which I shall sit here and waffle endlessly about anything you would like me to waffle on about. Hopefully about Game Guru. As you know, it's live, it's unrehearsed. I ask questions from the live questions that come in on another screen, the one that you can't see, and I try to answer them as best I can. I also take resource from a forum post which allows people to post and ask questions directly to me so I can then demonstrate them on the screen in Game Guru so you can figure out all those wonderful little nooks and crannies that aren't otherwise apparent. So if we go to the Twitch sessions, please send us your requests, and then I can have a look at anything that was posted that's new. This is the place where I would read your question, and if it warrants a live Twitch broadcast, then that's the subject we're going to talk about. So let's see if anyone has any ideas. Now, before we go into the meat of any new requests, I just want to add that there has been suggestions from various quarters that after 50 broadcasts, my presentation's now descending into the world of chaos. It's more about those tiny little nuancy things that generally people aren't interested in, and so we shouldn't spend so much of my time doing these Twitch broadcasts, whereas instead I could be doing code, making features, adding fixes, things like that. So it's an interesting point of view. I'd like to hear your ideas on that subject. Another idea is that we move the Twitch broadcasts from weekly to monthly, and then only feature the stuff that's related directly to Game Guru, i.e. new features that have been added, how to use those features, any nuances like the setup the INI fields, if we've added new of those. What do those fields do? How do you use them? How are they applicable to you in a day-to-day basis? So it's an important question. It's one that we always ask ourselves in this very cut and thrust technological world. Everyone's growing, everyone's moving, everything's changing all the time. If we stick to some format for the next 7 years, that becomes less and less relevant, then that's a bad thing. So it's good to question what we do every single day. So I put that question out there. Please reply either in the live chat, you can have a chat about it right now, or put it in this post, in this forum post, and we'll have a discussion about it a little bit later. But that's for the future. For right now, I have a job to do, and that is to read this forum and talk about Game Guru. It looks like BK is the only one that posted since the last time I perused, which is essentially people thanking me for a job well done from the last broadcast we did last week. So this is from BK. Hi guys, I'm trying to import a character, Superman, with his with his cloth / wings. In Game Guru, when I import it, seems nothing happens. I mean, it should wave like a flag. So can anybody show me with a video tutorial how do I import character with cloths in Game Guru? Well, that presupposes quite a lot of information that I don't actually have access to. Import a character. Where did this character come from? What format is it in? What tool was it created in? This cloth, is it based on a physics modulator, which is part of the toolkit it was exported from, or whether it's skinned animation, and whether that skinned animation is in a particular format? Is it using matrix animation data, or is it using position, scale, and rotation data based on the Born hierarchy? There are a zillion tiny little horrible things that, as a technician, I have to know. But if you just told me this tool has a character, here's the file, and will that work in Game Guru? If it doesn't, which is what it sounds like, then send me the character. I will play around with it in my own time. I'll get it to work. So that's really how it works. But there's really not enough information here for me to do a Twitch broadcast on this is how you take Superman and have him running in Game Guru, because there's just not enough stuff there. There's not even an attachment of the character. So it looks like there's a 4th page to this increasingly large thread, and 2 more posts, which is great. So Parrot Mike probably reiterates what I already said. The Superman model may need to be modified. It would need to be animate X-file format, only animated format that works with Game Guru, that's true. Also, the importer will not write complex FPE file needed. You will need to do this by hand. So you'd pretty much have to take the role of a technical artist. Once you've created your model, then you'd have to create some text files, some thumbnails, make sure your file formats and your textures, for example, are in the right format. Then maybe you can have Superman flying around in Game Guru. It's not impossible. All this is doable. It's all possible. But there's a big truck of technical proficiencies you need to be adept at before you can do that. And I'm not going to turn around and promise that you can do all that absolutely instantly by pressing a button. No, it's not one button press. You're going to have to do a lot of really grassroots stuff to get that stuff in. But it isn't impossible. So if you're ready to do this, persevere. Perseverance will win out over experience any day of the week. At least that's my experience. So here's the last post. Let's hope this is something I can twit about. Twitch about, probably a better description for the verb. How about a sneak preview of how the building editor is going? Also, will there be a proper pick up and carry and throw added to Game Guru with proper physics and collision detection when the player is carrying an object? Like the old FPS Creator Classic, I suspect. As the one in the store has no collision detection, say a Kratos carrier, this would be a great feature to have. I think Small G made a script, but the object was jittery, as collision detection had to be on and off very quickly for the script to work. This may need to be one of the things that is hard-coded. Yeah, it doesn't have to be hard-coded. We just need to create some Lua scripts, some Lua commands, which would hook into the physics engine. So then you can directly control things like kinetic movement for an object would allow you to have total coordinate control of that object, but it still plays a part in the wider physical universe. So you'd use a kinetic object for that. So all these are possible, and we can do them as Lua commands, and it would mean you can script them any way you like, whether it's a gravity gun, or just picking up an object, or having some part of the game logic move an object that's based in physics when you actually want it to, like pushing some rocks out of the way of a doorway, things like that. So I would probably do it as a Lua command. As to why it's not in there already, well, those Lua commands just don't exist. And if you look at the voting board suggests the EBE, which is the Easy Building Editor, and then next is AI, which is basically lots of different characters running around doing different things. So you would have to do different strategies, different weapons, different ploys in order to get your way through a level. Right now, most characters will just stand where they are, guard a particular place, or generally run towards you shooting their weapon. And it's pretty easy to dispatch them and win a level. So that second thing after EBE, that's where we'll focus. Now, certainly down the voting board list, these things will come in. I can't remember if there's anything specifically about picking up and carrying and physics manipulation through Lua commands. If it isn't, yes, send me an email. I'll add it to the voting board. I think that'll be a really cool set of Lua commands, because from that you can create all kinds of game mechanics. You know, it would not be hard-coded. It would be whatever anyone wants to do in a script with physics engine access could do, which is pretty much anything in the collision and physics and collision world. So yeah. So the only thing left, as you know, the other one, physics, would require lots of commands in Lua. I'm not about to write some commands now. Is the progress of the building editor. Well, there's nothing to show. I can tell you that right now. It's all on paper. It's all on backs of napkins and small sketches and ideas and you know, research and development, which you wouldn't even see any paperwork on. It's really me just boning up on things like voxel technology, where it is today, as Octree sorting algorithms improved in the last couple of years, just figuring out what the technology of today would have as a solution for the issue of creating buildings from scratch. There's no point reinventing the wheel if it's something's already out there, and there's no point rehashing something that was popular 6 years ago. So we're really at the design stage, and I'm not rushing into it too much. But you should see something probably in the next 2 weeks through my dev blog. So if you check that out, you can just go onto the news. I'll just see the news at the top. Just click that. You go straight to my dev blog, and then you'll find out some screenshots and how the building editor is going along. But there's nothing to show right now. I'm just going to look over to the live chat, which is something you don't see on this video if you're watching from Videoland, but it allows people who actually have tuned in to ask direct questions and send me off on a massive tangent. And I often look for the question marks, but it's all on one page, so I think I can read through most of it. Once we get past the hellos, There's a request from Pirate Mark to say keep the Twitches going weekly. So that's someone who does not want monthly Twitches, and that's been backed up by Bad Gibbon. He also does not want to hear the the terrible news that suddenly you're only going to get this once per month. But we are actually running out of original things to talk about. I could rehash the last 50 lessons, or maybe perfect the last 50 broadcasts, absolutely no problem. And I can still just talk wittery about making games in some sort of random fashion. I guess there's a value there, because I'll inadvertently stumble across some new feature that I've not talked about before. But what would be really cool is sort of a list of big areas people are struggling with that I can help solve. That would probably keep the weekly Twitch broadcast going. But I need help from the community. I need you to tell me which parts of Game Guru are difficult, which parts require further explanation. Otherwise, I'm going to consider this job done. So maybe that's a call to action for you guys. And a few more people are actually saying also weekly. The Red Beast 14 says, this is the first live stream I've seen. Well, you now have the opportunity to ask any question, some burning question about Game Guru that you are struggling with and you want the answer to. I will know the answers. I know the answers to pretty much anything there is to know about Game Guru. So this is your opportunity. I'm actually clocking off in 16 minutes. You have less than 16 minutes to get that question in. So this is what this forum is about. You ask me a question and I rabbit on and show you some really cool Game Guru tricks and tips on how to get your objective done. Synchromesh suggests I do look forward to the Twitches, I must admit. A guilty pleasure, perhaps? But yeah, give me some real questions, some real meat on the bone that I can really get my teeth into. Because I think I've pretty much covered everything. I've covered a lot of stuff in the last 45-50 broadcasts. Can't really imagine what else I can rabbit on about. But yeah, it's for you to tell me what to do. And I'll do another weekly broadcast next week, only if there's a really great question, a really great subject that I've not covered, and I will totally cover it next week. If I don't see anything like that, or it's something that I've already done, so I can just send you a link to some previous broadcast, then you'll probably see it go monthly, unless I get a massive community outcry, which would be interesting to see actually. So we're getting a question, or at least a statement from VRG 2015. Isn't it interesting to introduce the segments, like in Legacy FPC, to create massive indoor levels? Yeah, that was one of my first ideas, that we could actually take all the segments from FPS Classic, and has been produced since. I mean, that's a lot of assets. That is a gargantuan quantity of textures, geometry, alignment, limb separation. You can add and remove walls easily. I mean, yeah, I would just drop it in. Thing is, got a lot of flack from certain quarters saying, oh, please don't go back in time. Why would you make everything 90 degrees again? Why can we not have proper buildings instead of just rooms and corridors? So there was enough energy behind that feedback to pause my actions in regards to just slapping in the segment editor and washing my hands a bit and walking away. Which of course then spawns the opportunity to do something even cooler, even better. So certainly watch this space. I think we could probably still have the segment editor coming in some form in the future. For example, we've already got snapping. If you could convert segments into entities and then have sort of a composite entity where you could then delete the limbs you don't want, like intersecting walls, you could probably have something very similar to the segment editor. Perhaps even about a clever composite entity. So when you put two things together, it knows that those two walls are overlapping and removes both of them. Maybe something like that. But that's for the future. Right now, we really want to create an easy building editor that actually lets you build things from scratch. You want to be able to build up whatever it is your imagination has conceived. And why not? I mean, that would be so cool. Instead of just rooms and corridors, it could be anything. It could be statues, it could be strange halls of great height or depth. And it would be entirely up to you what you create with it. And that's the opportunity, so that's why we're going in that direction first. But certainly after that's out and about, and it'll have a user base who likes and uses it, maybe there's still a request for segment editors, in which case, yeah, let's have a chat about that in the future. But just to slap in the segment editor, I think we'd be missing an opportunity to create more interesting buildings and structures in Game Guru. Got one from Nathan L38. Thanks for the questions, guys. I've got a question, probably not a meaty one though. It doesn't matter if it's meaty as long as it's slightly minty. What is min poly trim in a weapons FBE file? Min poly trim? Oh, I know what that is. You'll find out if you're new to Game Guru and you're going to spend the next 5 years with us. You'll find that the engine is so packed with features, and half of them are not even documented. You'd be quite shocked at the depth of what is capable with this product. Min poly trim is the amount of polygons below which that limb won't be rendered. So if you've got a gun and it animates and you've got hands and all the rest of it, but then you've got like a cube, and you've put that little cube mesh inside the barrel of the gun that represents your fire spot. You don't want to render that cube because it's inside the barrel. What's the point of rendering a polygon you'll never see? What's the point of the extra draw call? Thank you very much. So that cube would be 12 polygons. So if you put 12 in that field value, it will say, oh, this cube is 12 polygons or less. I won't bother rendering it. And so whether it's a triangle or a plane or a cube, or even, you know, if you use a sphere, then shame on you, because if you've got another mesh that's using less polygons than that sphere and you want to remove the sphere with this feature, then that other limb will disappear as well. So that's really what it is. It's about cleaning up the rendering part of your gun. If you've left in some frame markers, geometry, typically you just want to remove the geometry and just have the frame. But some people leave the geometry in, and this is a way to remove that geometry from the FPE side of things. So that's what that is. I hope it made sense in my explanation. This is a big name. Raleda Rasende asks, what about creating one game together with the viewers, step by step, when we get to the point where we can go into more detail, e.g. quests? I think there are lots of questions and problems we don't think of just straightforward. Absolutely, yeah. Great point. I start making a game, and as I'm making it, you ask a question. You say, can you stop for a minute? You just did something there that's too fast. Can you explain what you just did then? Yeah, I think that'll be a great format. And we've got 9 minutes left. If I run into questions on the live chat, I'll probably start making a game. Maybe you can throw in some questions. But yeah, that will be a pretty good format. Every week or every month or whatever it is, I start making a game, and then I can be interrupted in the live chat. That'd be quite an interesting format. See how that would roll out. Nathan L38 asks, gun spec file, camera rather. Oh yeah, just to reaffirm, yeah, it's not the FPE, it's gun spec .txt. That's the file that you'd find in the guns folder. Now you've been staring at the same forum screen forever. You want to see something? I mean, this is a video broadcast. You want to see something on the screen? I'll show you exactly where it is. It's in Game Core, Guns, Modern, and then Colt 1911. This is the thing, gunspec.txt. A myriad of wonderful tweaks that you can make to a gun. It's not in isolation. You also need to change the model if you're changing the animation. You need to change the WAV files if you're changing the sound effects. But yeah, that's the hub. Gunspec.txt is kind of where it all happens. So going back to the questions, Synchromesh, BOTR, hair segment and weapon importer. We'll do all of this for those interested. Tell you what, I am never ceased to be impressed about the resourcefulness of our community. That is what used to be the FPS creator community that went on to become the Game Guru community. I'll start something off, I'll add a few Lua commands, I'll create some internal functionality, a bit of hard coding, and then when the next feature isn't available, the community go off and then finish the job. So the thing you wanted, being able to take segments from the old FPS creator days, use them in Game Guru, it's already available! And this is the website, www.gamegurutools.co.uk. It's not affiliated with the game creators. We are not in any way liable for buying anything from this site. This is an enthusiast site. This is a member of our community is really excited about what we're doing and have gone one stage further and is supporting that community with a website, with stuff he's creating, with products. I can't, I can't be more excited about this kind of activity. I don't mind if people create auxiliary products around Game Guru and sell them. I think it's great because it expands the community and it helps me out. I'm one guy, I can't do that many different things, but when the community guys step forward and finish the job sometimes, awesome. So there it is. It's Segment Welder, I think it is. If you've got Weapons Welder, I might actually stay here after the Twitch broadcast and have a bit of explore, because I don't think I've visited a lot of these websites in a long time. Pirate Mac says, all with permission from the users that donate the models and tools. Yes, we're very careful about that. I think you'll find if you try to take a model or a texture that's copyrighted and then put it into the community, or trying to sell it through our store, or however you want to monetize it, I think within 2 weeks someone will recognize that asset is from somewhere else and they won't get away with it. So you can be pretty much assured that in the majority, if not nearly all cases, everything that you see coming from the community has that consideration. It's stuff that's been created by that person, or there's been permission sought and granted from that media from somewhere else. So it's very important you respect copyright these days. I know in the YouTube generation people can just rip music and stick it as their background music for their video, and that's fine because YouTube gets some sort of unilateral permission to do that, and then no one gets sued. But if you're taking someone's model that they spent 3 weeks creating and they're selling it on Turbo Squid, and then you're just going to sell it yourself by ripping it and selling it on our store, then that's unfair to that original artist who deserves to be paid for the hard work that they do. So we highly respect the issues of copyright, at least in our little corner of the game making world. For the rest of the world, you'll just have to check that sort of stuff out for yourself. VRG 2015 asks, what will the next DLC coming out? Next DLC. There is a DLC. It's a nice one. I think you'll like it a lot. A lot. I mean, you'll really, really like it a lot. Don't want to build your hopes up. In fact, there's 2 DLCs, but I'm merging it into one DLC, and I'm going to make it a DLC you won't soon forget. And I'll guarantee this much: 95% of the people listening here and the people that watch this video later will get this DLC. It's that cool. But that's all I'm going to say about it, because I'm not creating a rod for my back. I'm not going to promise A and then give you B, because that's not fair to you. All I'm saying is, yes, there's a DLC coming. Yes, you're going to like it. Any reservations you currently have about DLC will evaporate. So watch this space. Check out my dev blog on that news feed that I showed you. Where did I put it? I think it's on our where. Here it is. News. So just go here. There'll be a great big dev blog, and I'll post it there, and then you can read all about it. But not just yet. Pirate Mike suggests more like 2 hours, lol. No, the DLC won't come in the next 2 hours. So getting some interesting and exciting comments from the live, and that's it. No more question marks, which is really good. I'm looking at the old clock. It's now 4:26. That's 3 minutes left. I do want to keep it to half an hour, keep it short and sweet. If you've tuned in for the first time, as I know at least one user has, wanting to see someone make a game, I can do that as well. We've got 3 minutes left. If this was any other game creation tool, you wouldn't have a chance. But yeah, I can make a game in 3 minutes. So here we go. So you want to make a game. A game consists of 3 main elements. It has a beginning, it has a journey, and then it has an end. So at the beginning, you want to say your player is going to start here. Your player is going to be armed. Let's say we arm our player with an Uzi, and we give him 100 clips of ammunition and 1,000 health. When he gets to the end of his journey, you want a nice yellow sign to say you have reached your destination, and you want to be able to know when you've won the game, so you'll put a win zone down. Now during the game, you have many adversities, including rocket men and masked soldiers who will do you injury. So we'll have a rocket man and a masked soldier who will try and get in your way. And also along the way you'll have some scenery that you must overcome. So initially you wouldn't see the enemies because there's rocks in the way. Dink dink, another one there. And of course, in developing your magnificent octopus, you want to be able to test your game a couple of times to make sure that the gameplay balance is just right. So I start with 100 clips of Uzi ammunition. I go on my journey and follow the path. Lo and behold, a rocket guy, and people shooting at me. So I shoot one. I am very resistant to people shooting rockets at me. He reloads, I reload, but I know headshots, and I can take his weapon, I can take his weapon. But what's more important is I can run to the big golden glue. And then we stand there, and then you'll see in the prompts, level completed. And then once you've made your game, then you can do save standalone. And yes, we do actually want to give it a name, so we'll call it My Cool Game. Then we'll save that level. And then what we're going to do is make a standalone executable. Now what the standalone executable is a way in which you can share your game with friends. So what you would do, you'd take that, you'd zip it up, so it becomes a single file, because initially it's all the media and the scripts and the executables and other files that you need. And then once you've got to your zip file, I don't know how long it would actually take to done, we're nearly done. Bink! You now have this file, and this file you can sell, you can share, you can give away, we don't care, but essentially what it does, it wraps up your level with a title screen, and you can have an about screen, you have a win-lose screen, you have a loading screen, you have all the things you need, and all these graphics, all this text can be changed. You can change everything here, and it's as simple as that. And I did that in, I think, under 3 minutes. So I actually created a start, a game with challenges, a win point. I made a standalone executable in less than 3 minutes. Now you try and find another tool that exists today that can do that. Obviously in its own flavours with its own assets, but from scratch in less than 3 minutes to make a standalone executable that you can instantly share with your friends. And that's the power of Game Guru. And starting with that foundation, we can then build on top of it all the different kinds of game logic. So first person you've seen. You can also do third person just by dragging in a character and dropping it onto the start marker, and when you run the next time you're now in third person perspective. We're already seeing isometric and platformers materialise. So there you go. Just by dropping in one extra asset, I've now got a third person game. So we're going to add more features, more genres, more assets, more game logic, so you're just dropping different kinds of enemies so they'll do different things. But you'll notice it doesn't really get any longer to actually create a game quickly. Now that's not to say you only have 5 minutes to make your game and you have to publish. No, some people have been working on their Game Guru games for 19 months. They've been working on it for as long as Game Guru has been out of early access and before. So you can spend as long as you want on your masterpiece. But it just goes to show that if you don't have 19 months to work on a game and you don't have any programming skills or any art skills or really any sophistication when it comes to level design, you can start here. You can start simply by dropping things in. The logic has already been assigned, and then you press the big rocket, you test it, then when you're happy with it and you want to share it, then you save standalone. And that's the magic of Game Guru. So I've made a game, I've looked at my chat, there's no question marks, so I guess that was a good tutorial. And now we're on the half-hour mark. So until next week, but only if you give me a great question to chat about next week, otherwise I will conclude I've talked about everything I could possibly can about Game Guru. So if there is that question, then you will find me next week. It will be Wednesday, not Thursday, 4 PM BST, and I'll be happy to talk about anything you want to learn about Game Guru. But for this week, I hope this was enjoyable and fun, and until next week, I shall bid you adieu.